Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Nature Folklore Sessions. It's 9th of January 2022. Well, thank you, everyone, for joining me for our weekly time of exploring nature-centered folklore, connecting this within your favorite sanctuary space, and expressing inspired visions from your sanctuary through your poetry, writing, art, craft, performance, and any problem solving. And right now, I suppose, to support your affirmations too. Now, this afternoon's theme, it commences our three-part divination series for this year. And so part one this afternoon is going to be water divination. And I should have a water divination photograph, which has totally disappeared. There we go. What? No, there. Oh, good start. Great start. Let's have this screen. There we go. A little bit of water divination there. Was something going on there anyway. And I'll probably include some other chat on other divination crafts that I might have time to cover. So there's a bit of an introduction onto that. We got one live guest on today. We got the return of poet Cathal. Oh, goodness me. Terrible for brain. Trina. Cathal McTrina, actually in the back stage in the green room, waiting to share lovely poems on water divination. And he hasn't been a guest with us for a while, but very appreciated when Cathal can turn up, and great that he's got some poems for today. So that's fantastic. Now, as usual, these Nature Folklore session videos and the Tree Sanctuary support are brought to you due to the support of subscribers, very appreciated subscribers through Patreon and PayPal donators. And some of the subscribers, they watch us every week. So thank you for your continued support, being live today or watching later. Thank you so much, because that keeps us on the air, and it funds me being able to share my mouth and everything else, the lovely guests with you each week. So let's see which lovely early birds we have with us on the show. Second one this year, isn't it? So who have we got here? I see the Sherwood Dales is around. There we go. Greetings from the Sherwood Forest. There. Thank you for coming in through the YouTube. And Claire Roach, she's on. I know she'll be talking to people later. So thank you, Claire, for being on until the guests arrive. She's quite busy at the moment. And then Sherry, lovely to see Jerry. Good morning, everyone, from northern coastal Maine, USA. We had a blizzard here, and it's finally a winter wonderland, very different to the drop of snow we had. Was it yesterday? I think it hung around for an hour or two. So I hope you're okay there. Sherry, Donna Johnston's here as well. Good morning. Lovely to have you here. And Alan's here after a very busy balloon season over Christmas, I'm sure. Hi, Alan. And Terry Slack Hardwick. Good morning, Maryland, UK. And Lamb's here also through the YouTube, becoming a lovely regular. And thank you for these folklore sessions. Always a pleasure, and especially to see the lovely faces. We have a lovely sort of community network, don't we, that's coming on and sort of growing. So thank you very much for the support and interest. This is fabulous. So let's see what I can show you today. Thinking about live guests, I would like, actually, I mentioned this last week with the introduction. I would love to invite all of you to consider sharing your poems, stories on the themes of nature folklore that I do cover each week. And now it's all compacted into series. Now, you don't have to be live. You don't have to be. Cathal's going to be live in a minute, so you don't have to be live with him. He's sort of vanished a bit at the moment. I hope he can come back. He might have a small problem. Anyway, you don't need to be live. You can pre-record. He's back. Fantastic. You can be pre-recorded, either video or audio. That all works. We did Penny last week, didn't we? We had her audio and photographs. So there's an example of what you can do. Now, I do keep a separate mail list of poets and writers that contribute, so I can contact them in advance with the news of the upcoming themes and the series that are coming up and invite their contribution. And it'd be wonderful to include you as one of our writers, storytellers, presenters. So please message me to be included with that. Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm not actually managing any payments to contributors yet. I hope to in the future. But when the subscriptions are more than cover the expenses of putting this weekly show on, then I'll have a bit of a pool to create a contribution, and we can share it out to the people that contribute and help them along with their craft as well. Now, as I started last week, the series of prompts, going to do that all this year for 52 weeks, one prompt a week, and I'm going to serve the second one a bit later. But before I get on to water divination, hydromancy, I'm going to talk a bit about the origins of divination. And this is one picture. Excuse me, I got the usual throat at the beginning of the show. So excuse me a moment while I settle that down. And I'm going to be, I'm including divination in Nature Folklore, as a lot of the content that I share with you on this show is actually from what I was brought up with, what my immediate ancestors lived with and what they were involved with, and what I've actually discovered myself that's been motivated by the ways and approaches that my earlier family people used to go about their lives, because they did lead their lives according to a lot of divination. I'm going to explain a bit why very shortly. And now I'm certainly not a Celtic or Irish Studies University student or scholar, and I'm not exactly a book-read person either. So stuff on the Nature Folklore is a lot to do with personal experiences and with family experiences. And so I hope you don't mind that. Some people do. But anyway, sometimes I tend to be that person that university scholars actually come up and interview. And they send it all, they'll send their surveys in for me to fill in. So I'm part of their research with some of them. But others, the conclusion from what I share with them, it may go into their thesis, a lot of the stuff does. But others claim I'm just full of BS and not the resource that they're looking for. So it can go both ways. But just to set it straight where this is coming from, and divination is very much a founding point. It was very much part of my father's family lifestyle, which was much to the concern of my mother's Catholic family. And they kind of lived as if divination guided every decision that they took. So, I don't know. I'm sorry. I should have got rid of this before I started. Anyway, they lived as if divination guided every decision and action they took. So as a child, I really believed that was the way to live. So that's what but fortunately the family members were also into charting a lot. And so I got into that very enthusiastically from a very young age. I was drawing, I was dowsing for ley lines, and I was kind of doing astrology charts, even navigation charts from the love of the water and see that type of thing. And often divination is thought of as being fortune telling, as kind of fortune telling party trickery, maybe, or maybe just a bit of fun, like the Chinese fortune cookies that we always love to get if we go out and we can break these open and have a laugh over some of the messages that come out. Now, in ancient times, if you consider this, in ancient times before humans were blessed with widely shared science, along with democracy, the publishing of books, legislation, all this stuff holds what would we call civilization together, I suppose. Divination it must have been the main and most serious guidance for living for human beings. And divination still is for many rural people, even today, it seems. Now, it's only, if you think about it, it's only been during the past 100, maybe up to 200 years in some countries, and probably not, and some of them haven't even developed this far yet. But I'm talking like, say, with you that are watching, most of you, probably it's only been the last 100 years or so that a vast majority of people around learn to read. So before acquiring reading skills, when humans had questions, they seem to look to other humans with skills to guide them through their pursuing questions. So this is, this is the sort of thing. Even look at this Victorian, even getting and divining, and I bet that's a person who could read anyway. But that's what we did. So did we follow divination, or do we follow fortune telling? Yeah, that's an interesting comparison, because you get both of those turn up today, really. And divination seems to be a ritual when it's presented. There's always ritual with it, isn't there? But it can also be very communal. And the one thing is, it's very intimate, very passionately connecting, isn't it? But very different to the way that fortune telling is. Divination seems to include elements that eventually become or were applied to religion doctrine. The basis of religion doctrine, they say, is books, but there's a lot of divination in that. But they put it into some sort of order, and it was written down. It wasn't the flowing thing that divination is in its purest form. And divination has been and is applied within crafts and therapy of medicine, therapy and medicine, really. Also, for if you think about it, dowsing for disease, acupuncture, and even homeopathy includes some divination. There are some examples of therapy and healing where divination is still present. And do you find, like me, that allopathic trained doctors that you like, the ones that seem to work best, are the ones that actually dare to mix in intuition and experience in with their training? And that's when they seem to be the most successful in their help with patients. And a lot of doctors these days seem to have eliminated that. They're not the intuitive doctors like they used to be. I miss that. But anyway, fortune telling. Let's think about fortune telling compared to divination. It seems to be very personal. But I find that fortune telling, to me, can be riddled with very demanding expectations. People go up to a fortune teller and they look at the stuff they want to hear, and there's a sort of some situation, and the fortune telling clairvoyant doer, we say, or just say fortune telling, somehow gets an idea, or they fiddle around with a few questions to find out what that person really wants to hear. So there's expectations involved, I feel, with fortune telling. And sadly, it seems that fortune tellers are actually a lot more popular, and they're paid much more than people who are actually devoted to connecting and caring with people as therapeutic diviners. My own thought is that divination can be very good counsel guidance when you've got a group of people together. And it's not dictating, because I feel the fortune telling is a sort of subtle dictation. It's suggestive, isn't it? It's almost commanding on person, your life will go this way. And the person is so vulnerable, and they'll go around telling everybody what the fortune teller said because they believe it. And I find that dictating. So I feel that divination stirs and clarifies our imagination and our inner vision, and we become responsible for that. So it becomes our source of our own contemplated revelation. So I think divination can often evolve, and this is how I suppose I try and use it, storytelling therapy. I think storytelling therapy is a very good way of presenting divination. I think it can be one of the best to apply divination in storytelling. You might have heard and seen Tony Cookson when we've had him as a guest. He's a real master at that. And I think we've got him next week or the week after. Anyway, well, fortune telling, I tend to interpret as being personal, but I feel it sometimes can be selfish, and it's actually pursued because of people having a deep hunger and longing for belonging, and they go to the fortune teller to get that moment of attention, I suppose you might say. So fortune telling, it can be looking for a magical, happily ever after solution, and people get addicted to fortune tellers. I noticed when I lived in the USA, it's there, and they go to fortune teller after fortune teller, and to me that's like covering your life with self-sabotage. So I have more belief in the diviners than the fortune tellers. So I hope my explanation of how I understand it and how I interpret the difference makes a bit of sense. But unfortunately, I feel that fortune telling actually diminishes any potential therapy that can occur in the presence of divination. And I feel fortune telling can also blur our personal imagination and motivation, because we believe in the fortune teller and what's being said. That sometimes a fortune teller can trigger prompts, and that's beautiful when that happens. But a lot of the time, I feel, especially those who are addicted, it seems to blur and cloud their imagination and motivation. They become almost joining the cult of the fortune teller. So to me, these are the essential ingredients for personal recharging. And personal recharging, I feel divination crafts can serve very well. Now, the people that who are carriers of divination visions, we may call them prophets, and we call them, we might say these prophets carry a prophecy. And there's a sort of prophet image that we might have of a painting. And those are words, prophecy and prophet are words from the Greek, maybe earlier Minoan. And prophecy comes from a word, sorry, I haven't got it up on the screen, but is prophesion. It's pro with a P-H-E-S-E-I-N. And that means, in Greek, that means to tell people something, what's going to happen in advance. And prophet is a word, prophetes, and that's the name of a person who speaks of future events. Now, I'd like to go around a few religions with this to see how it's entered. The Islamic approach fascinates me. The Islamic approach to language is interesting because really it goes right back to Persian culture and right back Babylonian culture. Yeah, it goes really deep. And the short of this, in the Islamic approach today, is that attempting to speak the word of God in human language is totally forbidden. It's supposed to be forbidden, which sounds, for some people, that's typical Islamic. But they say totally forbidden because the belief is the word of God is defined as having its own language. Like I often say on Nature Folklore, the trees and the plants, they have their own language without putting symbols down and joining them together like us humans do. And no other animals do that, do they? So the word of God is defined as having its own language. And it's a language that we can sense, we can feel it, but we cannot speak it. And in Judaism, the prophets, they're interpreted. Let's put up, I think I've got a picture of some Judaism people. Do I have some Judaism people? There we go. I brought the storytelling content thing up there. Yeah, I'm going to go through my. Here we go. Some these are some prophets, Judaism prophets, and they're interpreted as people that somehow they act out parables from their translations of their own sensed inspiration. So that's where the parables come from, the Judaism people. Now, with Christian prophecy, it's said that it comes through the Holy Spirit, the kind of messenger of God. So let's have a Holy Spirit picture. There we go. There's an imagery of the Holy Spirit. And I was taught these various interpretations. Fascinating, man. I was taught these in my teens by a man called Richard Charteris. He was a prefect, and he took over religious education classes at school for a couple of weeks. I don't know what happened to the actual teachers. Anyway, he took over for a couple of weeks. And now that Richard was actually looking for a religion for himself, which was fascinating. And he eventually became the Church of England Archbishop of London, now retired. But it was very funny. During those 2 weeks of school, he told us how he was searching for a religion, and what a pleasure it was for him to share what he discovered with us, because the feedback helped him with his journey with that, what to belong to. He almost joined the Mormons, but he was put off when one of the door-to-door missionaries actually told him that heaven had filled up in 1936, so he didn't think that was a very good investment. Anyway, on to concluding this, much of the rest of us, I think, we're sort that watch this, we're sort of pagans, spiritualists, pantheists, Jedis, and others that are similar amongst you. And the one thing that seems to be quite common with this is that of us, whether we're spiritualists, pagans, pantheists, blah, 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 one thing we seem to revere a lot is women prophets, isn't it? So there's a woman prophet there. I have a picture of there. And here's another one here, I think that one up. So that's a sort of common one. We love the sort of goddesses and the sort of feminine entity within the fairy, and especially the she, that type of thing. That's what I'm referring to, and we're going to be covering that over the in-bulk time anyway. But we consider the people that guide us are our guardian angels. Let's pick up some of this. We have guardian angels, don't we? Or we might have spirit guides, animal totems, invisible friends. We have those as well. And pukas. I don't think I have a puka picture. But I'm actually going to be saying a few words on prophets and prophecies here, because I believe in divination anyway. So that's why I've talked about prophets and prophecies. But a more common word, I think, for all of this is we're searching for our calling. And we feel that we are mediums for some kind of oracle, a portal through which prophecy flows. And before I actually move on to the title of this Nature Folklore session, which is Water Divination, let's see what you're saying. And then we'll have our only live guest this afternoon. So you've got a few comments up. Who we got? Maria's here. Lovely Maria from San Francisco. Thank you for early morning blessing. And the lovely Anne Bowding's back, who was on as guest last week. Fabulous blog. Good morning, John from Pennsylvania. Sharon Nickel. Cold sunny morning here, just about to make porridge. Well done. I've had the porridge, enjoyed the porridge myself. Fantastic. You can't, in Ireland, you can't beat the what's it in Cork? Can't remember the porridge we have. It's absolutely wonderful, the stone ground that we have. Yeah, that really that brings the prophecies on as well. Is the delightful porridge if you eat it right. Macroom porridge, that's what we have, the macroom oatmeal. And Penny is here. I gave her a quick hello reference earlier. Good afternoon from sunny Lincolnshire. And Davina is joining us from Virginia. Lovely to see you. Fantastic as well. Oh, and Cliff Carr's here, which is great. Just popped in to say hi at work at the moment. Catch up later. And Cliff's very keen on the OM, which we're doing next week. Brenda Burke, I'm in Ireland in the Midlands, close to Loughree. Thanks for joining us, Brenda. Fantastic. So that's caught up with the latest people who've joined us. The audience is getting much bigger, which is fantastic to see. And just in time for me to put on my earplugs for our singular guest. As I say, I hope some of you will join as guests. It looks like he's relaxing in the background there. So we got Catherine Katrina coming up right now. How you doing, Catherine?
How are you, my friend?
You're fantastic. You're looking good, sounding great.
You're looking well, you're looking well too, John. A very happy new year to you.
And you.
And to everybody listening.
Yes.
Right. Well, just a couple of poems for you, if I may, John.
Yes.
Just
Fabulous.
on the subject of water, the effects of water and divination. Mainly, I'm using it as a metaphor for own personal self journey or self exploration. The first one is called the divining rod, and I'll just cut the video there so the bandwidth won't be disturbed. The divining rod. The divining rod moves lightly with ease in searching words from burning water seep, like a blacksmith tempering metal deep on the smithy's hammered anvil with these images, fired, molten, shaped in a phrase, pointed and formed by the mind's eye in sleep, when the gloaming gives way to darkling creep, bathing in the moonlight's silvering rays. What matter be that no one will know my struggle here to wrest the fruit of knowledge from the brambled briar and thorned hedge, through the thick-set thicket that marks the way to the blinded seer who stares to the sky where demons whisper soft his mind away. And just two more short ones for you. Next one is called The Echo of Water. The echo of water falling from source to stillness in a mountain tarn, an eagle gliding her course, shadowed over lake and stone-laid cairn. Painting pictures for the mind's eye to see the wind's breath rippling over water, sedge and reed swaying to the breeze's sigh, the curlew's cry on the wind as air lifts her. Struggling through mountain grass, seeking purchase with each booted stride, mountain air, chill as frozen glass, cuts to the bone like a sharded ice blade. A grey sky hoarding his clouds like a miser, as a watery sun pinpricks with rays of whited brilliance, downwards to a chatting stream to sit beside her, my thoughts fresh and in the present tense. Soon society's reality will pull me back, where a place for me might be found, off-centered though, not quite of the pack, of tune at times, a scale of dissonant sound. There's hope though, through harmony may be found in a different key, the consonant sound. And if I might just finish up there with a poem titled Through Burning Water. Through burning water, wetted by the heart's steel plunge deep, to forge the kingdom of the marvelous, hoving into the sight or whited cliffs, rising from the boiling sea, life's fire burning bright in the heat of the sun of another day to be lived. The music and magic of happening time, in measured beats, tumbles into itself with each drawn breath. Now, in this moment, is to be alive, embracing each moment like a hungry lover, draining the cup of life in every lung-filled inhalation and exhalation. One with the self incarnate, until gulped to the last drop. Chin age, my friend. Back to you, John. I hope
Right. Well, we got.
enjoyed them.
It's lovely if we can see you again, Cattle. We got some fans already. We got holding there. Look at that. Wants to fall right in and even through your words into the scenes you describe and inhabit. Thank you. That's from Bolding. And Sherry Murphy as well. Thanks for the blessing us with the lovely thoughts and words. Yeah, that was a beautiful set, Cattle. Thank you very much for that.
Well, wonderful. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, John.
And we'll get you back again sometime. Thank you so much for that. Thanks. And have a wonderful spring and so forth. I'll keep in touch. Wonderful. What a lovely, singular guest. What a lovely little excerpt there. That was brilliant. Thank you, Cathal. Well, I better get on to what this was titled, The Water Divination. And I was throwing up all kinds of pictures and that I could randomly find trying to catch up with the words. But anyway, I hope it wasn't ended up being too much of a distraction. So hydromancy. Scrying, those are the things I want to be talking about now. So scrying today is really, it's a word that divinists use for kind of staring into anything, all kinds of mediums. It could be fire, could be a piece of wood, but we're going to talk about in terms of water, scrying into water. Rather than in the back cloth, you see I've got mirror and crystal stones and water. Those are the other things to do scrying with. That's another water scene there. So to prepare for scrying, we need a meditative mindfulness state, which seems obvious. And the appropriate state is enchanted. We can enchant ourselves into that state with our own preferences. Some people like using various aromas, background music, maybe some form of self-hypnosis. Silence, of course, is a form of self-hypnosis, just accepting the sounds that are around you, especially if you're outside. Some of us do chanting as well in order to, and some do a dance, ritual dances, rhythm dances to get into that state of mindfulness that's essential for the scrying. But these practices of scrying, they're recorded way back. So say this is ancient stuff. It's recorded amongst ancient Egyptian writings, and the Persians were writers thousands of years before us. And so they talked about scrying, or forms of that. And even the Mormon founder Joe Smith, he used 3 stones to inspire his teachings. So it's, as I say, divination turns up in religion, the formation of religion. And perhaps the one that most people are familiar with is in Lord of the Rings, the Palantir. And that was used in the movie for scrying as well. I got another Palantir. There he is. There's a man himself doing a bit of scrying. And that's probably what you're more familiar with, I assume, anyway. But from the acts of scrying, images are seen. Maybe the actions are verbally recorded, set into memory, because I do feel if you get so emotional about something and it really gets your passion, that sticks into your memory. So that's what, if you try and learn words in a line, I find I can't memorize those. But if there's an experience, if a storyteller talks to me and I'm off in another place, then the memory sticks. But we can write it down in our own words, or we can use our own symbols and shorthand, whatever we feel is best for that. Now, my own favorite divination craft is with water, the hydromancy. And there's, I showed that up through capital. There's preparation for that. And the oldest form of this craft is staring into the pools of spring wells, sacred wells. There's a nice pool at moonlight, and also the holy wells. And I often show that picture of our local one as well. It's to me, this is the simplest interpretation. And we do have in folklore a simple interpretation that I go through with you at Imbolc and also at Belthana. And there's an Imbolc tradition, and as I say, one that people do on the eve of May. And at both events, the common purpose is to try and see the mate. What mate is coming up in the pool? There we are, some women. I think they're trying to find a mate coming up anyway, to see what mate they're going to meet at the Belthana meeting and the fires. But obviously, that's very out of date tradition, considering our quest for modern equality culture that us humans are trying to work towards. Anyway, but that's the old tradition. And also the water world tradition, it is very simple, very easy. It's obvious. If we've got a lovely pool, and it's always a clean pool all year round, if you've got something like that, you can imagine it bubbles up. You can actually see the bubbles in the middle of that, a little bubble coming up, and it comes up from quite deep. Imagine in the quiet of that, and just with a bit of wind, maybe a bird, and you're in that. It's amazing what visions can come out. It's great for divination opportunities. Very good in that well. But hydromancy is really, it's hands-on stuff. It's not really something that I don't think that you can actually read in a book. And I've lost a lot of my pictures here. But it's not really a thing you can pick up on the YouTube. And I'll give some of these pictures because the ones I had lined up for you seem to be lost. I like the moon pool, the moon shining down into your screen bowl. I love that one. So it's a bit of a learning guide. But one key thing to consider is actually the relationship of moon to the pools of water. And I've noticed the pictures I've got showing you is around that. There's another one there. It's wonderful. And visiting these pools during moonlight, I recommend doing that much more than with daylight. And I wanted to say something about the Willow. I thought I had a Willow thing, Willow picture. I've lost. Oh yeah, that is Willow, isn't it? I showed you it. There you go. That's actually the moon, and there are willows in the background there. I hadn't noticed it when I showed you the first time. And the willow is important because it's regarded as a tree that's a conduit of water. And I might bring that up during the autumn time more than now. But there's a bit of imagery for that. Now, there should be no expectations when you're contemplating in a water pool, like the swan seems to be contemplating there. And you get women, they can look into the water and expect a clear vision of their man they're about to mate with. There's no idea whose hand that is there, really. It's the reflected dream, isn't it? Hoping for that reflected dream from the water. The poem I say sometimes, I haven't got it on hand at the moment. What's actually revealed from the water when we do this screen, especially in the wells, if you're honest about it, it's very different to what we may hope to expect. And I think that goes back to the difference I was saying about fortune tellers and divination. You know, if you go to a pool, because that's what women did on the eve of Bridget's Day or the eve of Bethany, expecting to see the man they're about to mate with. That is fortune telling. But if you actually openly take the reflection and learn from that, which is really a mirror of your conscience, I believe, then you're allowing yourself to be guided by the divination. But as I'm trying to contain this show into an hour, I'm not going to go any further into that. But there are some little tricks diviners do on water to actually force visions. If people go out to the water and say, I don't see a damn thing, there's a couple of things you can do. And they're very effective. Skim pebbles. That's a good thing. You skim some pebbles and you see all these little labyrinths that appear after you skim the pebbles over water. I find that's amazingly enchanting. Enchants children. I know that as a child when I did that, and I managed to get the skill of making a stone go pop, 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 as you do, and all these little rings. Boy, I found myself getting totally engrossed with them, and it really sets off the imagination. So there's a nice little trick. If you're with, there's another, there you go, plop, there's the skimmed stone finally on this last circle, and in it goes. So dropping another thing, I haven't got any pictures on it, but you can drop essential oils into the water, and that makes amazing rings and colors. That's another thing they can do. And so these are a couple of options you can use to enhance your water scrying wells. So worth trying out. As I say, these are hands-on. You need to be present in these situations. It's the one thing you just can't get from a book or a YouTube or even from this program, really. But doing all of this in blessed scrying bowls or directly from well pools, it's a wonderful thing to do. And I should talk about how this can be transferred to crystal balls, because there's another option if you're not by the water. But I'm going to leave that. I'm going to move on. That's just too much of a subject for now. And I don't use the crystal balls much anyway. Family members did. I had an Aunt Lillian that was very keen on that. Anyway, let's see what you're saying at the moment. Cathal's handing his thanks out to Claire, to Sherry, and to Anne. Thank you very much again, Cathal. Little wing here. Looking down to see what's up. I use water for moon gazing and meditation. Wonderful. I know Siobhan is quite a diviner in herself. She's appeared from Carrick on Shannon, and Little Wing saying hello there. Wonderful. And I gather some other new comments have appeared. Let's catch you up. It's Anne again. Well, lovely. On our property, we got a large grassy wetland area. That when this is a good one. That when I got a hole to plant something, the hole fills with water. I love that experiences when that happens. And so now, in listening to your words, I find rather inspired to think about digging a well or pool and seeing what happens. I might tell you something about the tree, and the tree itself would be a divine object. That's lovely as well, because the one thing and I'm going to be coming to this in the tree season, but you got the water there. The one thing when you put the tree in there, it's going to drink that, because the tree labyrinth here was a bog, just like you describe, Anne, and once the trees were in, they drank it up, and now the tree labyrinth can be walked all year round, which was totally impossible in its early days. Now, thinking of other divining mediums, let's think of it. What have we got? What have I got? Some pictures. Let's get the pictures. I've got. Is that a picture I'm doing? I'll put that up, and I think I'm going to change my back picture because I've had this one up for a while. I'll put another divining picture up, I think. And I thought I had them. There we go. Click, click, click. I should be faster on this. Let's put the other one on, and that should be a bit more fun. Or I should have put the water ripples. Do you know what? Yeah, I'll put this one up, I think. That'll be when I get rid of that. Okay. I think what I'll do is the other thing I used to get involved in, and say I passed down from the family, is astrology. It's a divination craft that I worked a lot with, just purely because it was passed down through the family. It was almost like learning. You learn how to use a knife and fork and spoon from the family, and I think astrology was put on the table as well. So that comes into it a bit. Let's see if I can put a picture up to represent astrology. There you go. That's a lovely. That wasn't the way I learned it, but there you go. There's a thing. Now, a couple of stories. I'm not going to tell you much about this astrology. I'm just going to use a couple of stories. And I saw this aerial view of Iona, where the people live, where the most people live. You got the jetty there, and there's the small village, and it shows you where Iona actually has a few trees, which is quite a miracle. The abbey's there at the top right, and the nunnery is sort of on the left there. And so Iona is quite a thing, because they say on Iona, just about everybody, almost everybody in the world visits there at least once. It's phenomenal. As I worked there on some stonemason projects, people would appear that I hadn't seen for years. Now, at that time, one of the things I was doing, I had a syndicated column, and I was actually doing astrology counseling for people. And a lot of it I was doing by distance, by post. No internet then. So I was doing this by post. And the way I used to approach astrology is, you do a chart up. Do I have a chart somewhere to show you, just in case you're not sure how to do a chart? I thought I had a chart picture hiding in the looming somewhere. Yeah, there we go. I'll give you a quick flash of that one. There we go. That's the sort of thing. I'll be drawing those up, and instead of just the lines, because there wasn't a computer service at the time. And so I would draw these, and people would expect a reading. And a lot of astrologers, when there's an alignment and between planets, and when you got a trine or a square and opposition, all this stuff, and they would have all these templated, I suppose, definitions of what that trine means and what this, that, and the other means. I didn't do it that way. I used to just look at the thing, I'd see the whole patterns, and what would happen is I would suddenly, this is the scribing as well, from all these patterns, and I suppose from being used to it, I would actually see the face of the person. I feel that's the only way I could do it, is imagine the face and imagine what they were doing. And that's what I would write about. And that's the report I would send them. And especially when I did moon progressions, because I found the moon progressions much more useful than just going through transits, that type of stuff, if you understand what I mean by that. The moon progression, each day of your life, it represents a year of your life, a day of the movement of the moon and where it is. Anyway, I'm going into complex stuff. Anyway, I had all this memory of all these people I had vision, and I was working on Iona as people passed through the nunnery, which I think I spent most of the time on, or I call them a jetty. Sometimes I'd see people, and as I say, I told people I recognized them from my past. Oh, hello, hello. And there were some people that would come ashore off the little, it wasn't the big roll-on, roll-off ferry it is now, it was little red boats. And they would come off, and I'd see someone, and I'd look, and I'd say, yeah, I know that person. Who on earth is that? And I go up to them, and I'd say, I'm sorry, I recognize you from somewhere, but I don't know your name. Who are you? And then through talking, realizing it was one of these faces that I saw in the chart. And I was meeting up with a postal astrology client that I'd never seen. So that's what the scrying can do, recognizing people. So I must admit that blew my mind, and that happened quite a lot on Io. It's happened in other places, but Iona is where people turned up. So there's a lot of that one. My second story of that is I used to do some of these psychic and mystic fairs. And again, no computers. You just drew out the birth chart. You had about 10 minutes, I think, someone to make a booking, and you put the chart together. And well, how do you put that down? To actually do an analysis, you're doing all this frantic drawing. You got all the different color pens, and you've got the rulers and the calculators and great piles of ephemerises. I used to have to turn up in these, must be 100, 200 books sometimes. You turn up in big carrier bags and you have to rattle through for time changes and so forth. So you're putting all this together in about 10 minutes, rapidly drawing and the angles, and you got no time to actually do an actual analysis. I had to do this facial recognition thing. And what I devoted myself to doing is trying to recognize what the vocation of the person was from the imagery I got. And generally, I was pretty precise on that. I bring that up as the initial conversation. Yes, and I do this and I do that. Well, there was one woman who came up, and I was looking, I thought, I can't work out what this chart's all about, because the only feeling I was getting with this chart of this woman was I wanted to jump into bed with her. I thought, goodness, have I been away from home that long? Anyway, she started coming up, and it didn't help. She had sort of very tight skirt on, and she had like a supermodel sort of walk. And I thought, oh no, what am I going to say to this woman? I couldn't go straight into the stuff I was saying to the other people. Anyway, she sort of sat down and had the grin. And I was stuck. So I started doing it the old way. Oh, you got the sun here in Leo, and the moon is over here in Mars. And I started doing like a lot of the astrologers do. And she realized I was having a bit of a problem. And she actually said to me, would it help you if I told you I'm a prostitute? And the whole thing... she wanted some clarity, because she wanted to actually be a fashion designer for women who were in spheres, I suppose you would say. Anyway, those are the only two astrology stories I think I better give you. Time's moving on, isn't it? So that's me on astrology, my astrology past. That's all I'm going to say. Let's see what you're going to say on that. Vina thinks that's funny. Padme P. Oh, lovely, you come. That's on the YouTube. Little Wing. Well, there we go. Greetings from Manchester, Sophie. I'm Fiona. There's a bit of a chat going on, which is lovely. It's lovely when that happens here. Right, right. Let's see. Ah, I'm getting a. There we go. Sophie from Wells in Somerset. That was had me be. I should have browsed up a bit further to see what's going on there. We're getting, and Terry here is, she's sort of doing an MLAO as well. As I'm rolling about on the floor. I'm glad you appreciate that. Thanks very much. Anyway, I suppose I better get on to a bit of the next subject. I'm running out of time. Well, I'm actually going to be on time, I think, today. But last week, I started on the prompts, talked about prompts, and I started on inspiration and expression using prompts to assist your writing and other creating, whether you're painting or sculpturing, whatever your craft is. So this week, I'm going on to prompt number 2. Last week it was obstacles. This week is passion for your vocation. So I've kind of hinted on that already. And let's see if I've got a picture to support that. I should have. There we go. Nice slogan. That fits in with what is being done. And whilst I've got that up, I think there's a couple. Layman sort of thinks that was a bar doing no trade for services. And then someone's, there we go, I'm so embarrassed. Oh, sorry to embarrass any of you there with those stories. Anyway, I better get back to the next bit, the prompting, because you might find this very useful, especially as I invited you all to be writers and contributors. So that one won't go away. Last week, my first prompt I said was articles. Now, I'm wondering, did any of you contemplate that at all, what I had said last week? And you can always watch it again. This towards the end of the introduction last week. So what, if you did contemplate it, what did you find you expressed from that idea of obstacles and approaching them? And especially the obstacle of what shall I write, where I was pointing out, don't feel you got to write sentences, just write simple things down, prompts, like a bird in the sky, you can put a V, because you'll always remember, if you see that V on your notepad, you'll suddenly remember that bird you saw in the sky. So it's always there. But getting started and restarted with the flow of our expressions through writing is very challenging, as we can put a lot of stuff in the way. And most of that obstruction that we present is pure self-sabotage. And it doesn't need to be there. None of that obstruction needs to be there. To me, it's like trying to feel that a home is already built when we place the first brick or even the first log. I mean, this man, he's doing his first log, I think. Imagine doing that and you're already imagining the house built. Or you're saying, oh, how am I going to get this finished? And you're on the first log. So this is the start. This is the first kind of doodle, I suppose, is working out how to do your first log. So for this week, I wish to prompt about our vocation, and especially through the approach of passion, doing our vocation through passion rather than through a feeling that what we're doing is a sacrifice or even a penal duty. Now, to be blunt, the word vocation, we could simply just say work. And work can be a very scary word. It can perhaps bring the imagery of wandering around with a ball and chain, and that's the imagery of work for many people. So that thing, work, it can be the stuff we do through much of the day when we leave our home, though these days much work is actually done staying at home and trying to find the least distracting space so that we can actually do some work and earn a bit of crust. And doing all of this work on various digital screens that we do now, that's what majority of us seem to be doing, rather than hold tools, which was what work was mainly before there was an internet. So less of us now are off out to work, going out of our homes. We're not exactly going off to do some farming or forestry, go fishing, build walls. This is work, isn't it? These lads here, if they come up, no, they're not coming up. They're refusing. There you go. Some lads building walls, cooking and caring for others. You leave work, leave home for that, or trading, physically handling merchandise and transport. So most of us, there's that dream of trying to make our work being something that we might describe as being our calling. It's a response to a passion, even to a scrying vision, maybe. And a lot of writers, musicians, video creators, broadcasters, painters, what else is there? And well, all other creators, they will feel this is what they need to do and work towards this. And here's a lad trying to create his dream there as a writer. But sadly, many people feel little meaning and fulfillment from the activity that they call work. And that's sad because work fills most of our working day, our waking day, doesn't it? So that can be a sad situation. And sometimes it's not the actual tasks that we do with our work that brings us down, that makes us unhappy. Sometimes we're happy with what work we're doing, but it's the people around us that makes us unhappy and tense and uncomfortable. And another thing is, I don't like checkboxing approach. A lot of people, if they've got a problem, they use checkboxing. I suppose I do it sometime, but the trouble is, when you do checkboxing, checking the boxes, to try and evaluate where our life is and what we try to assess what we can do about that. To me, if we're checking boxes, it's a process that we're feeling is something we need to do. And the actual checking the boxes, I think, is actually our first major obstacle, because to me, checking boxes detaches us from any response from inner passion. And I think it amplifies our desires for acquisition. I'm thinking of these rapid online dating services, these apps, and you see people, they're ticking the boxes, and it's as if they're approaching these dating sites as an acquisition. Which man or which woman do I want on this site? It's like a shopping catalogue, and you're sort of filling in. There is a modern term, isn't it? What do they call it? I don't up with the modern words at all. It's not the woke one. Cancel culture. You're doing the check boxes and you're going through the whole process of the cancel culture. And to me, that's just amplifying a desire for acquisition. It's not not connecting at all. And what it is, people are looking to build a life of perfection. And that's why they do the check boxes. If they can cancel stuff, then they get like the cream off the top and everything will be perfect. No, you still got to deal with the stuff that's underneath. So if we do go the checkbox route, our list might include the tasks that we do. It might include the people that we work with. It might include the desired working locations. Different working locations give us access to more freedom or restriction of expression. So we decide how much are we actually being controlled. Here's a working location. How about that one? With that old typewriter as well. And it seems the ideal balance with our work and our vocation is to find ways to we might be a bit of both. Find ways to better the lives of others through our work and our vocation, and also combine that with our own opportunities to expand our skills. So if we can put the two together, we're really on a roll, aren't we? And it's very wholesome and very meaningful. So with this week's prompt of passion, calling the prompt Passion from Your Vocation, I invite you to contemplate and explore your work, your career, your vacation, whatever you call it. And I'm going to show this picture of Michael Quirk because a lot of people are familiar with him if you're in Sligo, the storytelling woodcarver. And he regularly quotes a proverb, work is prayer. That's one thing he strongly believes in. And very simple words, very powerful ones too. And that's what he says. So starting work there, a starting point there is St. Michael's work is prayer. The thought there is, what the hell is prayer? Because some people define prayer as being unselfish and even a penance devotion. And then other people regard prayer as a conduit for achieving betterment, personal improvement from wishes. So wishes are put out there through prayer as well. But either way, whether it's for penance or for acquisition or just making things better, I invite you to consider how your work, how your vocation is unfolding your story. Our lives are a story from the present moment, from the past, and what's unfolding. And we have these insights, and I've been talking about divination, giving insights. You work through the divination, work through the insights. What are you doing? You're adding new chapters, new pages to your story if it was all written down. And this is all subject to how much of this do you actually personally allow. So I'm actually talking really about another realm of divination. I talked about storytelling is a wonderful divination tool, but also this contemplation about your work, about your vocation, that unfolds your story because you're trying to balance how you can serve others and how you can be provided for, because all you're looking for is making sure you got something to eat, something with shelter, you got reasonable health care. At the same time, you want these things for other people as well. And that really is what it should be work and vocation's all about. So if you're contemplating in a well pool or a bowl of water, I should have another picture of this. Oh, let's bring up the skimming stones again. There you go. That may help you along, just browsing into something like that. And if you're contemplating your vocation rather than a checkbox, I think that's a much better idea myself. And I think everybody's got an incredible mine of nuggets of memories from our past, especially our past work, our past vocation. We can pull up those experiences and moments. And I think by doing that, sometimes we might feel miserable, but it's amazing how many stories we can pull up, stories from our work, and they're funny stories. We're at parties, we're at meetings, and we can come up with these lovely, funny stories of things that happen to us, quirky things that happen to us in our work, in our service, and everybody shares it. Everybody gets a good laugh and has a lot of fun, and we learn by it, and it brings community together. I love that sort of stuff. These instances of work. It's lovely having these stories so we can be jolly, communal, and it's all natural storytelling. So again, this is a doodling exercise. This prompt number 2. And just write down random words. When I say doodling, write down random words and symbols that respond to those work memories, especially those jolly ones. You can craft them together later. You've got to get these little jottings down first. Then you can look at them like a jigsaw puzzle. Now, how can I bring them all together? Songwriters are good at this. Poets as well. They write little, if they think of a word, just put it down. They might have a sentence when they're in the middle of something. You get a boot stuck in the mud. You'll write a sentence down about that. And then you'll sit down one night and what shall I do? And you look through your notes. Oh, that word goes with that and that goes with that. Annie Lennox used to explain this really well. She actually has a bag of lines and she still pulls them out. David Bowie did this as well. He talked about this. And so they get all these lines and they just sort of almost cut and paste, put them together. That line works with that. So if they needed a song, they'd pick up all these words and lines of experiences and seeing if they can put something together. So that's what you can do as a crafting as well. You're going to discard a lot of those notes and those symbols. It doesn't matter. You might only use a few of them. But right now, each moment when you scribble something down, you don't know if that's going to be the thing you're going to use or not. New Order, for instance, the band New Order, when they were Joy Division, they wrote loads of songs, they said, and they barely used any of the songs they wrote. And the song that was the big hit for them, Love Will Tear You Apart, they said it nearly went in the bin. It was just one of many random songs. They thought, but no, that took off. You just don't know what you're going to use. Just enjoy expressing them and doodling in whatever way you do it. And I'm going to talk about this with Ogham next week, using Ogham as prompts and in divination. So they don't have to be Ogham, just your little scribblings, symbols, words, whatever they are. I talked about that last week. So, as I say, you can sit down on a dark night and put order to your inspired doodlings. And you could do things. Here's a game. I said don't check boxes, so I'm going to sort of be hypocritical on that. You could write a bit of a list. Say, list your past jobs. Then doodle down your memories from the horrible to the funny, and also the enchanting as well. And then include doodles about what pissed you off and what's joyful about your current work. And especially emphasize what enchants you and what sends you into a sense of wonder you want to discover. Write little doodles about that. What are your favorite work moments? And what are and were your worst moments? And how do external things affect your potential passion for the work that you do? Write some notes about that. What does affect your passion? Is it the people around you? Is it the location, the settings around you, like your immediate working surroundings? Or is it just a lack of materials? Do you feel you haven't got the essential tools? And one of the essential tools people might think about is financial budgeting. Like, I'm always bugging you for, can we have some more subscribers, please, so I can actually cover a few more expenses and share a bit out with our poets, etc. later on. So how can your work or vocation elevate from being a grind like the ball and chain? How can you elevate from the ball and chain into a fulfilling calling? Sometimes it's just a slight adjustment from what you're doing right now. And how can you use that inspiration and instinctive abilities of divination? How can you pull that together? Use what I've talked about, divination. How can you put that into this mix of your vocation, like staring into the water, with thoughts of how can you craft a personal life of passion through your vocation, your creativity, which is part of your vocation, and the service that you provide with it. So that's the impromptu I invite you to explore this week. How can your work or vocation elevate you from any kind of grind into a fulfilling calling? And from using the inspirational and instinctive abilities we all have and use through divination, try doing that. So let's see what you've got to say after my rant there. We've got a few people talking. Let's see where we were. Oh, Edward's around. Great. The moon. Here we go. This is a good one for Edward to talk about. The moon reflecting the water through the branches of Willow tree is said to aid divination with a triple receptive media together. Yeah, I think hopefully that was the point I was putting across as well. The conduit, the moon being, the willow is the conduit to accept the moon and present on water. I could go into that in greater depth. In my book, Bathing in the Phrase Breath, I have the Oma Tale of the Trees, and I got Sally in that as well. And that's the one thing I talk about with the Sally poem, is the conduit between the moon and water through the Sally the Willow. And thank you, Edward, for bringing that up, by the way. It's good to kind of, how can I put, kind of not enforcing it, kind of give recognition, verifies. It's good verification, Edward. Brilliant. Thank you. Cathal says, thank you, Penny. And Cliff, Labor of Love. There's a nice one from Cliff. For myself, divination comes inspiration. Changing around from what I said, but why not? That's the way you discover it, and that's it could be anything. Work is prayer, prayer is connection, vocation is connection, and that's a lovely sum up from Anne there. Fantastic, brilliant. Yeah, thank you for those comments. That's a lovely set of comments there. That was great. And now, as I mentioned near the start of the sessions, brought to you due to the Patreon subscribers. Here I go again. That's the address. And I will get around to the short videos. We're in the process of moving, as you know. Hopefully, from after doing that, I'll do a lot more on the short videos for you, and have more guests on the Sunday short videos on the side. Now, coming up, let's talk about what's coming up in the next few weeks. Got 2 more in this series, in this divination series. We've got 16th of January. We got the OM. And a lot of people have already been asking that. We got some lovely guests coming up from the OM. And I think I've got a bit of an OM thing. Let's have a look at that. This is the sort of thing we're talking about as far as divination. People use bits of wood with OM symbols. We'll talk a bit about that. Might talk a bit about the runes as well. There's another variation on that. So that's going to come up on this, next week, 16th of January. OM divination, OM as prompts. As you know, I split the OM stuff up by 5 Sundays. I'm not going to try and cover everything OM next week. It's just the divination and the prompts a bit more. Using OM for divination is actually frowned upon by ancient language scholars and myth scholars, but people use it and they're looking for understanding of it. How can they make that usable? Maybe a lot of the divination with OM is quite modern stuff, especially during these social media years. It's sort of expanded exponentially, this sort of thought. And everybody talks about it as if it's ancient. But the style of divination they're using isn't ancient. It's what's more useful for people today. It was quite big during the sort of cult years of the 70s as well. Certainly in the mystery years of the 50s after the Second World War, there was a lot playing around with that. Anyway, I'm going to cover all that stuff next week. About using OM symbols as a medium of divination, very popular. And as I say, a very good. I do believe OM started as a prompting language, and I'll explain that a little bit. And it was symbols for prompting before the medieval scribes came along and worked out how to put them together to form words. They were put together on stones and probably on wood before from the base upwards. But when they're read, it's like as if they're storytellers. To me, it's like when you're showing photographs, when you're showcasing photographs or a PowerPoint and you're clicking. The ancients didn't have PowerPoints and photographs. So they had the OM. They had prompting symbols through which they could tell a story and put it in a sequence. Anyway, I'll move on from that. 23rd of January is more or less like it's a transition one. Because I love the stories of the water serpents. We got our own here in Ireland. Scotland certainly has. You got the Loch Ness Monster for a start. But you got the water serpent myths, very big in the East, the Orient, China, so forth. So I'll talk about that quite a bit. And it's a transition from the divination into the Imbolc, when all the lambs start springing around, and we're about to spring into spring by the time I get talking about this. And as I say, we talk about the Chinese side of things as well, with the Chinese dragon, which doesn't breathe fire. It's a water serpent. So huge symbol for the Chinese New Year. And let's look into how those myths relate to what our stories are in the folklore around here. Then from the 30th of January, a lot of people hope we would do this earlier, but I'm going to have 4 weeks, 4 Sundays. There's going to be an Imbolc series from the 30th of January. A lot of people are now saying because it's recent mild weather here, they've got their snowdrops out and abundant already. But to me, the snowdrops are very symbolic of everything Imbolc. So that's why I put a wee picture there. So Anyway, let's see what else you asking, what you got to say here. It's been lovely. Lomar's on the ball here. Embodiment of the demand ties us together, not binding as a ball and chain, but the freedom to live a better life. Many blessings for that encouragement in your work. Isn't that lovely? Thank you, Lamar, for typing that out. That's brilliant. Well done. Wonderful. So, Gail's been amazing. Thank you, Cathal. Is he still there? Trino, Cathal McTrino, there he is. He's sort of got a thumbs up. Let's add him for a moment. There. Thank you, Cathal. He's been there the whole time. Amazing. We'll have several guests next week. If you're watching this broadcast as an archive video, please keep the comments going here. I do check them up and answer them. And subscribe also if you get a bell and so forth on the YouTube, so you get reminded what's going on. And Sherry says, thank you for being here, Sherry, and the Sherwood Dowser. Thanks for wise words. See you next week. So, yeah, it's been a pleasure doing this for you, as it always is. And it's lovely it's exciting to see all these comments. And you've really making some lovely comments today. I love it. So enjoy a safe week, everyone. And what do we got here? Safe week full of your inspirations, one especially from your divining, of course, maybe from your promptings, all those enchantments. So it's until next Sunday. Thank you very much for watching. Play well, look after yourself, enjoy yourself. And that's me. Bye-bye. Thank you.